So you're going to have the suck uniforms the entire season, but 3 games will give you with the best uniform. Those are the issues I have. The powder blues out for the Chargers. That should be every game. The Miami Dolphins old uniforms that they throw it back to. That should be your uniform, not the trash you wear now. The Patriots. You ever see them throw back with a little football player in the helmet? It is beautiful. But let's keep the trash uniform.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
So they're working together to kind of figure out what's happening here. Like you mentioned, we saw these videos of these 2 pitches that he threw, but there's a reason that those were flagged. It's this betting integrity monitoring service called IC360 flagged specific bets on those 2 games from Ohio, New Jersey, and New York, which were placed on these things called micro betting markets.
NewsWire.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. It's time for the British Open. Well underway. In fact, all the players have teed off. We'll have a live leaderboard, including one big surprise under par, potentially through the first round of the Open Championship. Also, the latest in the National Basketball League, and we'll go through the odds in Major League Baseball. The second half set to open up tomorrow night. Matt Lutovsky will join us from Sporting News as well. So we'll go through that, of course, and a whole lot more. The latest in the WNBA. They have games tonight before they break for the All-Star game coming up on Saturday. And naturally, we'll cover it all for you here on NewsWire on today's edition of the show. But first, let's start off with some sports betting news, an update on the situation with California and now Underdog, who have decided to change their format. Very popular sports company in daily fantasy. They've decided to go player to player in California, changing their format. And it's just the latest in this saga of changes that California is undergoing. Of course, right now, they do not want any sweepstakes. They also don't want any daily fantasy. And right now, the Attorney General, Rob Bonta, has issued a long-anticipated opinion declaring daily fantasy sports illegal. So this would mean peer-to-peer is not exactly daily fantasy sports, but seems to me that they're trying to find a way to stay operating because Underdog has been previously reported a lot of their revenue has been generated out of the state of California. Meanwhile, the President of the United States is signing an executive order on NIL deals coming for all collegiate athletes. We don't know exactly what that's going to entail, but it certainly could change the landscape of NIL, name and likeness money. It's called the SCORE Act, Student Compensation and Opportunity Through Rights and Endorsements. It was introduced by the House of Representatives, and we have very little details on it thus far. So all we can tell you is it looks like there's some regulation coming for NIL. All right, now over to the Open Championship. Some surprise names at the top of the leaderboard thus far, but the names that we're keeping an eye on, of course, are the favorites. And right now, Scottie Scheffler, still the favorite to win the Open Championship, and he's just 1 stroke off all of the leaders right now. A couple of players are 4 under par at the Open Championship as the first round, as you can see there, getting ready to complete. Several players teed off about an hour ago, but one notable that I want to bring to you that's not listed there, I don't think, although my eyes are not as good as they used to be, Phil Mickelson is 1 under par, maybe through the first round of the Open Championship. He's standing on the 18th hole right now. So we'll keep an eye on that as we go throughout the show. We'll have a live leaderboard update at the end of the program in about 50 minutes from now. New signing for the Washington Commanders. It is Super Bowl champion Von Miller, who on Instagram said yesterday that, yeah, he's signing with Washington. It's a 1-year deal. He'll sign a physical. He is 16th on the all-time list in terms of sacks. He has 129 and a half. Von Miller going from Buffalo to Washington for the upcoming season. Major League Baseball has a break today. There are no games, but there is some news. Let's get to the latest here. Ketel Marte is just the latest among athletes who have had their homes breaking into when they are not home. I guess folks knew that Ketel Marte was going to be at the All-Star break, and it was a high-dollar residential burglary. That's what they're calling it. No one was injured at the time, but they got to get this figured out. It's been happening all across the country to NFL players, NBA players, and baseball players as well. Jake Berger of the Texas Rangers has been placed on the injured list. He's going to be out for a period of time after hitting 11 home runs for the Rangers. Also spent some time in the minor leagues. As far as the All-Star game and the ratings are out, very surprising to see a little bit of a decline by approximately 3% based off the numbers in 2024. So right now, the All-Star game with the swing off appears to be a little bit down from where it was last year. Also, a small trade in baseball, too. The Kansas City Royals have acquired Adam Frazier in a trade with the Pirates. And Frazier, of course, an infielder who can help them out for the remainder of the season. And in case you missed this earlier, I sent this out on social media, a little bit of a piece of breaking news. The Marlins have placed Connor Norby on the injured list. He had surgery yesterday to repair a broken hamate bone, and he's going to miss approximately 6 to 8 weeks of time. Hopefully he could return at the end of the season. You can find me on social media there for the latest on Major League Baseball. NBA move yesterday. Bradley Beal agreed to a buyout and is going to join the Los Angeles Clippers. He's giving back $13.9 million. What a nice guy. He made $110 million on his previous deal with the Phoenix Suns. He'll sign a 2-year deal, apparently, with the Clippers. Breanna Stewart had 24 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists. The Liberty had a big win last night, 98-77 against the Indiana Fever. They played without Caitlin Clark. She's questionable for the All-Star game on Saturday. Also, the Phoenix Mercury, Satu Sabali, also won't play in the WNBA All-Star game. That's coming up on Saturday night as well. She said that her body needs more time to recover, can't suit up, and thanks to the organization for everything that they're doing to get her healthy. And also the Minnesota Lynx, Kayla McBride, will replace Ryan Howard as an All-Star reserve. Howard was one of the 12 reserves selected by the league's coaches, but she'll be sidelined for the rest of July due to a knee injury that she suffered in Friday night's loss to the Indiana Fever. All right, let's go back to the Open Championship, folks, and let's show you the latest on the leaderboard there, Vinny, so we can pull that up for you. The Open Championship leaderboard. There we go. Okay, so those are the current odds as it stands right now. Let's go through it. Scotty Scheffler is currently, as you can see, a little bit less odds than he was previously going into this thing. Matt Fitzpatrick has moved up to 10-1. John Rahm, who is also 1 under par, currently 11-1. Rory McIlroy is 12. You see the jump for also Tommy Fleetwood, who's off to a good first round. He's 22-1. Victor Hovland is 22-1, and Tyrrell Hatton is 22-1 as well. So those are the latest odds over at the British Open Championship. And here is the current leaderboard. I'm going to run this through with you, so you could basically go player by player here for those of you who have any bets. So the leader right now, as it stands, he's 4 under par. And that is Olsen. He is currently the leader right now, followed by JT Lee, Jacob Skov Olsen. If you're not familiar with the name, neither am I. So that's why I'm reading it to you live on the air. HT Lee is in second, 4 under par. Fitzpatrick, as we mentioned, Brady Cannon talked about him earlier in the week. He's 4 under par. 3 players right now currently 4 under, followed by Scotty Scheffler. And then a host of others are 2 under par. Maverick McNeely, 2 under par. Victor Hovland, also just getting started today. But as I mentioned, John Rahm 1 under par as well. But the big story would be potentially if we could have one of the legends of golf, Phil Mickelson, stick around for the weekend. Didn't expect to see him 1 under par. He's had a lot of success, by the way, at not just the Masters, but at the Open Championships as well. Latest odds, as you see there, Scheffler, Fitzpatrick, Rahm, McIlroy, Fleetwood, Hovland, and Tyrrell Hatton. Those are all the leaders right now, and the updated odds will continue to give that to you throughout the show. As far as other events are concerned, we've got the WNBA All-Star Game coming up on Saturday night, and it looks like they're going to be missing several big names due to injury. We told you earlier in the show that the WNBA, of course, has a ton of popularity and trying to get even more of it coming into this big All-Star game. But what would it look like without having Caitlin Clark? Last night, the Liberty just crushed Indiana 98-77. And when Caitlin Clark has not played in WNBA games for the Fever this season, the team is 4-6. So naturally, that's not good. And they're going to hope that she plays Saturday, but I don't see any scenario that happens. Injured players during the regular season generally don't play in the All-Star game. And also, Satu Sabali will not play in the WNBA All-Star game as well. All right, so coming up next year on the show, we'll dive into some Major League Baseball and the odds as well. Second half of the season set to open up. We'll take a look at all the division odds, the East, the West, the American League, the National League as well, and also take a look at the most valuable player and National League most valuable player odds. For those of you into fantasy football, We're going to have Joe Pisapia coming up a little bit later in the show to dive into the latest as far as who you should be taking in your upcoming drafts. And our fantasy football programming officially begins this Saturday on Fantasy Sports Today. You can catch me and George Kurtz. And then on Sunday, you can catch Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker. It's 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern, exclusively here on SportsGrid. So we'll be right back with a whole lot more, some baseball discussion with Matt Lutovsky next. Don't go away.
So you're going to have the suck uniforms the entire season, but 3 games will give you with the best uniform. Those are the issues I have. The powder blues out for the Chargers. That should be every game. The Miami Dolphins old uniforms that they throw it back to. That should be your uniform, not the trash you wear now. The Patriots. You ever see them throw back with a little football player in the helmet? It is beautiful. But let's keep the trash uniform.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
So they're working together to kind of figure out what's happening here. Like you mentioned, we saw these videos of these 2 pitches that he threw, but there's a reason that those were flagged. It's this betting integrity monitoring service called IC360 flagged specific bets on those 2 games from Ohio, New Jersey, and New York, which were placed on these things called micro betting markets.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Seiya Suzuki and Pete Crow Armstrong is the first time the Cubs have ever had 2 players reach 25 home runs before the team's 95th game. I thought that was a stunningly odd statistic that you would have just thought, well, the Cubs, storied franchise, all these big superstars that they've had, and even superstar tandems, they've never been this good, and they continue to be that, man. They are just continuing to hammer the baseball. Pete Crow Armstrong, what an incredible trade that's worked out to be for the Chicago Cubs.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
There are better opportunities out there for LeBron than the Lakers if this is how the Lakers are going to operate.
They really put Milwaukee as bad. I have to put my glasses on. Milwaukee. Giannis may not be there. I'll tell you right now. New York.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Matt Lutovsky and I certainly are in agreement that it's good to have Major League Baseball back tomorrow. We would agree with that. I know there are some other people who will not, but I cannot wait for tomorrow. In fact, I'll be on the broadcast tomorrow for the Marlins and Royals game. So we'll dive into the American League Central, National League East. I'll ask Matt about those 2 teams, but let's bring them on to dive into all of the odds, division by division, and see if these heavy favorites, Matt, will collapse before the end of the season, because that's really what it would be at this point. If you're minus money as a leader in the division, it would require a collapse. Yankees have already collapsed a little bit, right? Like, I mean, they're minus 135. Toronto is right there. The question, Matt, that I would have for you is it a 2-team race? Do you legitimately think that the Red Sox, who won 10 in a row, beat up on a lot of bad teams, by the way. I've got to make sure I mention that. White Sox and Rockies among those 10 wins that they had. Tampa Bay's always in it. I think Orioles are out. Is it a 2-team race or more?
No, I think it's 3. I don't think we can count out the Red Sox at this point. Obviously, what they did before the break, that's, probably as hot as they're going to be the rest of the year. And they're going to sort of start to, come back to earth a little bit, while I think the Yankees will get better. So I would certainly favor the Yankees like the odds are, but I don't think you can count the Red Sox out. And you certainly can't count the Blue Jays out right now, having a little bit of a lead and playing good ball themselves before the break. I mean, 3 really talented teams. We've already seen the Red Sox, make a big move this year that it kind of counterintuitively, they got better afterwards. Is that going to continue the rest of the way? I don't know. But they got all the good young bats, and it just feels like one of those seasons where they had all those tough, close losses early. They figured some things out. Now they're playing well. They're playing with confidence. So I don't think they're going away the rest of the year. And like you said, the Rays are going to hang around too. We've talked before about how the heavy road schedule might, cause them to slow down a bit in the second half of the year. But I actually thought that was going to happen a little sooner, and it hasn't completely happened yet. So I think they're another one of those teams that will just stick around and make things a little bit interesting too. But I would certainly look at those other three teams as all being in the mix.
Yeah, I would agree. I think definitely. And by the way, I don't want to rule out Tampa Bay either, but let's also recognize they have the most road games of any team in baseball to play the rest of the season at 11-1. All right, so Houston's back in as the favorite to win the American League West, followed by Seattle and Texas. I think we could safely say the Angels, although they've had a little bit more ups this season than downs, are not going to win neither of the A's. So can Texas jump back in? Again, it feels like this is now Houston's to lose. They're significantly ahead of Seattle. But Matt, Seattle is one of those teams at the deadline that it's like either now or never, right? I mean, we've said that a few times with them, but if they don't make the postseason this year, boy, there's going to be a lot of disappointment.
Yeah, for sure. And I've been waiting for Texas for a while, and they just haven't come around. So I'm kind of starting to move on a little bit from them. Look at those other two teams. Seattle, they have the pitching. They have some really talented hitters. Obviously, Raleigh's having an MVP caliber season. So you think they can break through and make that one interesting. I don't want to totally count them out just yet. But it's tough because Houston, I think, is kind of clearly just the better team. They're solid, they're experienced, they're playing good ball. They haven't really had that big dry spell where you worry about them. Obviously, there's been a few injuries here and there, but that's every team. So I really do think that they're in good shape to win the division as the odds indicate. But there's something about it. I don't know. Maybe it's just because it's because of Cal Raleigh and everyone kind of fell in love with him even more over the All-Star break. But I just can't completely count out Seattle just yet. But I do think Houston is in really good shape there.
All right, as far as the National League East, we expect this to be competitive, but it may only be with two teams at this point because the Braves have certainly not put themselves in any position, I think, to win it right now. And Matt, I think next year the Braves may be right back in it, but confluence of events, including struggles by a lot of key players, have them under 500. So Phillies and Mets, Matt, it feels like battling it to the end. The Marlins have been a big surprise. I don't know that they're going to win the division, but they've been better than Washington and Atlanta, so give them credit for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Braves, it's just too many injuries, basically what you alluded to. It's just tough when you lose the pitchers they've lost throughout the year, as well as some of the other issues they've had. But yeah, Phillies and Mets, that looks like it's going to be a fun one all the way down the stretch. I could see us going into the final, weekend of the season, scoreboard watching there between those two teams. They're both ultra talented. They got great pitching. They obviously got some big time hitters. So I don't expect either of those teams to go away. I think they're both the types of teams that'll make moves at the deadlines, try to fill in the gaps of what's needed. I think that one's just going to go back and forth the rest of the summer and into the fall, and I'm looking forward to it. I've always kind of thought the Phillies were the little bit of a better team, so even when the Mets got off to the really hot start, I was like, don't worry, Philly's going to come around and they'll be there, and they are right now. But I certainly wouldn't feel confident enough to put a lot of money on them because the Mets have the talent and have certainly shown that. And Soto's heated up and he's getting going, and what he could do in the second half could be enough to help carry that Mets offense that really needs him. So that's going to be an incredibly fun race down the stretch.
All right, let's finish off with the National League Central, where it is true, Joe Madden, Joe Madden. Yeah, that's who I'm thinking of, right? Yeah, he came in. Think of our very own Joe Madden here for a minute. He came in and helped the Cubs win the World Series with Chris Bryant and Rizzo and all those great players. But what happened since then, Matt? Every year the Cubs, I'm staring at that number, minus 200, minus 150. And then September comes and they fall apart. So I'm not willing to hand the Cubs the division until I see what they do at the deadline, Matt. I just can't do it.
I know. I think there's probably some Brewers fans thinking we got them right where we want them. Obviously, the Cubs have been fantastic this year. I believe they have the best run differential in baseball. It look like they have all the pieces, but yeah, sometimes with certain teams, it just hangs over their heads, and I think that's going to be the case. I like the Brewers a lot. I think they, talented team, one of those teams that just kind of finds a way. Good enough pitching, good enough offense. Is it good enough to get over the hump and take out the Cubs? That I don't know, because I certainly on paper think the Cubs are the more talented team, but it's going to be another fun race. I would favor the Cubs, but again, I wouldn't put a ton of money on them right now.
American League MVP, National League MVP odds, very heavy favorites right now with Aaron Judge at minus 600 in the AL and Shohei Ohtani minus 800 in the NL. Do you see anyone sneaking up and taking this away from those two players?
I think that Raleigh and PCA can get there. They have the numbers. It's just right now, there's narratives. These guys are phenomenal. And now that Otani's pitching again, I think that's going to be a lot more difficult in the NL. And Judge is just doing what Judge does. And I think he's less likely to slow down than a catcher in the second half. So I think he's got it too.
All right. So is the big American League Cy Young favorite is Skubal? Is the National League Cy Young race the key one to watch in all of baseball with Wheeler?
It'll be a fun one. Yep, I agree.
All right, we'll be right back.
So you're going to have the suck uniforms the entire season, but 3 games will give you with the best uniform. Those are the issues I have. The powder blues out for the Chargers. That should be every game. The Miami Dolphins old uniforms that they throw it back to. That should be your uniform, not the trash you wear now. The Patriots. You ever see them throw back with a little football player in the helmet? It is beautiful. But let's keep the trash uniform.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
So they're working together to kind of figure out what's happening here. Like you mentioned, we saw these videos of these 2 pitches that he threw, but there's a reason that those were flagged. It's this betting integrity monitoring service called IC360 flagged specific bets on those 2 games from Ohio, New Jersey, and New York, which were placed on these things called micro betting markets.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Seiya Suzuki and Pete Crow Armstrong is the first time the Cubs have ever had 2 players reach 25 home runs before the team's 95th game. I thought that was a stunningly odd statistic that you would have just thought, well, the Cubs, storied franchise, all these big superstars that they've had, and even superstar tandems, they've never been this good, and they continue to be that, man. They are just continuing to hammer the baseball. Pete Crow Armstrong, what an incredible trade that's worked out to be for the Chicago Cubs.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
There are better opportunities out there for LeBron than the Lakers if this is how the Lakers are going to operate.
They really put Milwaukee as bad. I had to put my glasses on. Milwaukee. Giannis may not be there. I'll tell you right now. New York.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Great to be back with you here on our Thursday edition of the show. All right, so now before we get to the SportsGrid sound-off, let me tell you what we have on deck. The Southeastern Conference has had media days the last few days. You're going to hear from Kalen DeBoer on the expectations for the upcoming season. Boy, Billy Napier was under some fire for the Gators last year. He's back again. Brett Venables, speaking of fire, for Oklahoma. Time now for the SportsGrid sound-off. Let's begin with the SEC and start off with a team that needs a little boost this season, to say the least. That is Alabama. Of course, just on the outside looking in sometimes of these situations now in college football. They've expanded the playoffs, so that gives other teams opportunities to get in and winning conference championships as well. But Alabama's standard essentially under Nick Saban was championship or bust. And Kalen DeBoer yesterday at the SEC Media Day said that that indeed still remains the standard that they must live up to.
Did your year one live up to the Bama standard?
In which way? Or like to me personally, or
what you evaluate to be the Bama standard? Do you feel like your year one lived up to it?
Yeah, I mean, for if you internally ask us, no. Like we fell short of making the playoffs. As simple as that, right? And giving yourself a chance to go compete for a championship. I think there's a lot of things that I'm super proud of that are happening within the program that are part of the progression. We want it right now too. We fell short. Our guys, again, I'm proud of them and the way they've responded to, us, not realizing the goals that we, set out to have and getting back just to work, focusing on the main thing. I feel that's always been the case, but sometimes there's just ups and downs you got to go through, unfortunately, that we had to experience. But in the end, we're going to take advantage of the failures we've had and be better because of it.
All right, so now let's get to Billy Napier of the Florida Gators. Meanwhile, Florida last year went through a tough season, especially in September and October with Napier. Things did turn around in the second half, and Napier's going to have to win a little bit more this season, I would assume, to stay at the University of Florida. He met with the media yesterday and talked about what it meant to coach and play in the SEC.
For me, as a competitor, you want to play against the best, the very best. And there's an old saying, to be the best, you got to beat the best.
I need a 5-second here, and that's it.
Competing in this league.
I can't hear the audio.
I think about this league. I think about the history, the tradition, the venues, going on the road to play in this league, the rivalries, the great players and great coaches, the level of investment by the administrations, the depth that's required to play week in and week out in this league. I think the personnel is different in this league. I think there's diversity of scheme. And don't forget about the recruiting gauntlet that we go through in this league. This Netflix documentary is called Any Given Saturday for a reason, and you got to be ready to go every week.
Meanwhile, DJ Lagway is expected to start for the Gators this season. He's had some injuries that have kept him off the field in the spring. Now, one of the other schools that we'll be keeping a close eye on in the spring, well, I mean, I guess we're past that, so I guess it's the season at this point, is Brett Venables, as they're set to open practice next week. Oklahoma has been one of those teams that's always competing for national championships, but they found out that living life in the SEC is a little bit more difficult. Venables going out of his way at Media Day to compliment former quarterback Jackson Arnold as they head into the season.
College football, that a guy who started games for you last year at quarterback could be on your schedule this year as an opponent. Your memories of Jackson Arnold, what kind of player is Auburn getting, and advantages and disadvantages of facing a player you know so well early in the season?
Yeah, I love Jackson, love his family. Sharon and Todd, they're amazing people. Hate that, what happened. We wanted to keep him. We tried to keep him, but I think he just needed a fresh start. I don't want to speak for him, but he was wonderful. Never once was I disappointed in him. He handled one of the toughest moments of his athletic life in an amazing first-class way. And I know this without reservation. He's going to play this game a long time at a really high level. And unfortunately for him, everything around him wasn't helping him, be successful. So he had no chance in some ways under the circumstances, and dealt a really bad
And here on
game.
NewsWire, our exclusive coverage of college football will begin next week, as we'll have Bill Bender on several times a week getting you ready for the upcoming college football season. We'll be back with Joe Pisapia talking fantasy football next.
You're going to have the suck uniforms the entire season, but 3 games will give you with the best uniform. Those are the issues I have. The powder blues out for the Chargers. That should be every game. The Miami Dolphins old uniforms that they throw it back to. That should be your uniform, not the trash you wear now. The Patriots. You ever see them throw back with a little football player in the helmet? It is beautiful. But let's keep the trash uniform.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
So they're working together to kind of figure out what's happening here. Like you mentioned, we saw these videos of these two pitches that he threw, but there's a reason that those were flagged. It's this betting integrity monitoring service called IC360 flagged specific bets on those two games from Ohio, New Jersey, and New York, which were placed on these things called micro betting markets.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Seiya Suzuki and Pete Crow Armstrong is the first time the Cubs have ever had two players reach 25 home runs before the team's 95th game. I thought that was a stunningly odd statistic that you would have just thought, well, the Cubs, storied franchise, all these big superstars that they've had, and even superstar tandems, they've never been this good. And they continue to be that, man. They are just continuing to hammer the baseball. Pete Crow Armstrong, what an incredible trade that's worked out to be for the Chicago Cubs.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
There are better opportunities out there for LeBron than the Lakers if this is how the Lakers are going to operate.
They really put Milwaukee as bad. I had to put my glasses on. Milwaukee. Giannis may not be there. I'll tell you right now. New York!
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It's that kind of day, Joe Pisapia. I'm glad to have you on board here.
So close. They don't know.
Right.
The people behind the scenes,
Joe.
we know. Yeah. Everybody else doesn't know. It's all right.
What are you going to do? All right, fantasy football time here. We got, what are you doing full fantasy football this Sunday on the show? Or I'm trying to figure out what we should be doing.
Well, we are doing full fantasy football because there's really no baseball games to really speak of, leading into it. So we'll do full fantasy football. We're also going to be doing some mock draft shows. We're increasing our technological know-how here. So we do a ton of mock draft shows on Fantasy Pros. They're very popular. We thought we would do a couple of them on our show. So we got a lot of great fantasy football content coming. We're going to do baseball. In another week, we'll do a split. But then after that, once August shows up, it's football season, so we're trying to get prepared already.
I agree. A couple of weeks away. Once the baseball trade deadline, comes and goes, then I think you have a select group of people still in it, a select group of people out of it, and that's how you figure that out. Okay, so Superflex leagues. Joe Pisapia was doing this several years ago, saying it's the only way to go. I think the future of football is in Superflex leagues. I think there's a chance several years from now that the one quarterback leagues are done. We're closing in on that. Joe was way ahead of that one. Let's kind of go over some of those different options here. I'm happy that you brought up some back-end options in fantasy this year. Let's go through value at the quarterback position. Our graphic is going to show 5 players: Fields, Prescott, May, Stafford, and Michael Penix Jr. Those are some of the names that you have targeted for the upcoming season, and I'd love the explanation on a few of them here, especially the back-end ones, Stafford and Penix Jr.
Well, look, first of all, it's a quarterback league. So the fact that we were drafting teams and we were only getting 12 quarterbacks drafted, it was kind of crazy. They're the highest point getters. So why are we only using one quarterback, especially in 10-team leagues? If you only have 9 other friends or people you're not going very deep into the pool. So that's why Superflex is always more fun. But some of the names we're going to talk about, they impact single quarterback leagues as well in terms of value. Because you're going to see Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, those big boys, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, they're all going to go in that 3rd to 4th round, somewhere around there typically. We had a draft show yesterday too where they actually slipped a little bit, but typically you're going to find them in that range. So you're looking for value. And I know Justin Fields might not be the prettiest quarterback at times, and maybe the Jets won't win, 10, 12 games, but Justin Fields puts up fantasy points with his legs. And even last year when he was playing in the first 6 weeks of the season, when he was the starter, he was actually QB6 over those 6 weeks in fantasy. And that was learning a new offense, an Arthur Smith offense that was really kind of dull. So the fact that Justin Fields was able to even put up those kind of numbers is very encouraging. And 2 years ago, when he rushed for over 1,100 yards, Greg, he was also, guess what? QB6 over that period. So you're talking about a guy who is going basically, towards the back end of quarterbacks. He's ranked currently as QB 10 overall, but he's much closer to being a top 5 guy, statistically speaking, because of the rushing equity, the rushing touchdown equity. And I think in this offense that Aaron Glenn and company are going to put out there, I think he's going to be very successful. Tanner Engstrom comes over with Aaron Glenn from the Lions. He was the passing game coordinator. He was the assistant OC over there, worked with Ben Johnson. So that's a very exciting thing potentially. And they're reuniting with Garrett Wilson, I think also a huge deal for Justin Fields. So I actually really like him in Superflex and even single QB leagues too, as a great value at QB.
When I watched Fields play last year, Joe, I felt like Pittsburgh didn't really fully give him the keys to the car, so to speak. I felt like they had it a lot. Do you think that changes in New York?
I do. I think it has to. I think they're going to be a run-heavy team, and they're going to be, I think, very funnel towards Garrett Wilson, which is fine because that's what Fields has shown you in the past, right? You know, if it's going to be DJ Moore, that's his guy. You know, I think that's very clear. Last year it was George Pickens. That's his guy. So I think from that perspective, Justin Fields is going to give you very simple fantasy points you can control, but they're going to want to run the football, play defense. I think that's going to be the Aaron Glenn special. And then the next name on the list too is another guy who's going to rush more than you realize. And that's Drake May, who's going at the 16th quarterback overall. We could touch on Dak Prescott too, but May is interesting along with Fields because if you're looking for another quarterback that has rushing equity, we saw what Jaden Daniels did when he came into the league last year, how many yards he rushed for. You know, last year, Drake May only played 13 games. And again, it was an awful situation. The offensive line was dreadful. The offensive coordinator was a joke. The head coach was a joke. He still had 421 rushing yards. There's a world where he goes well over 600, if not even 700. Drake May is a very sneaky guy in terms of getting out there in space. They've got a lot more weapons to contend with now, too, a much better offensive line. Dak Prescott at QB 14, also really intriguing. He is only 1 year removed from being QB 3 in fantasy points in a season. 1 year removed. The running game stinks. The defense, well, we could talk about that and see what they're going to be this season, but he's got CeeDee Lamb, he's got George Pickens. They're going to be throw heavy. And Dak Prescott, I got him as my QB in the very last round of a mock draft we did on Fantasy Pros yesterday. So I think sometimes people have too long of a memory and too short of a memory, but I'm old enough to remember when Dak Prescott was a top 5 fantasy QB. Now, do I think he's going to be that again? No. But if he's basically going undrafted in single quarterback leagues, why wouldn't you take Dak Prescott? And if you're in Superflex leagues, if you want to take Chase, Gibbs, Derrick Henry, any of those guys, right, in those first round, Justin Jefferson, you can come back around eventually and take guys that we're talking about, like Dak Prescott, like Justin Fields, and like Drake May, all of which I think have the upside to finish as QB1s, even though they're barely being ranked like that right now in Fantasy Pros.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting about Dak Prescott is that, yes, it's changed a little bit with the upgrade with Pickens, but all those stats that you ran through, Joe, where he ranked was pretty much in worse situations. I mean, unless you feel Amari Cooper was fantastic. I mean, Dak has basically been getting it done every year, and it hasn't mattered who their wide receivers are. So I feel that way as well. All right, so now let's go to the team that I know that back in the day, you're jumping up and down about, but now it's just down a little bit, the New England Patriots. So Drake May, there's definitely reason for optimism, new head coach. I think there are all positive signs going into the season. I know you like the receiver that they drafted quite a bit too. Is May, I put May and Nix, I kind of get them mixed up a little bit because I feel like they're both kind of in that same tier. Is there one that you like more than the other? And do you think May is ready to take that next jump?
Look, I was never the biggest Bo Nix guy. I was never sold on him at Auburn, but look, he performed well at Oregon, and then he performed much better than expectations. He was terrible in September, but then Sean Payton did a good job of tailoring the offense to him, and Bo Nix had a good, solid fantasy season in his rookie year. I'm not going to take anything away from him. He is ranked currently as the QB 8 overall, and last year he finished as QB 7, but if I had to choose between Nix and May this year, I would actually go with Drake May. Much bigger arm, the average depth of target for Bo Nix is very short still. Now, like they're trying to, like I said, surround him with something very simple that you can make work. But at the same time, Drake May, there's rumors right now you're going to get Stephon Diggs week 1. You're going to potentially have Kyle Williams, who I really like. They drafted Travion Henderson, all the yards after catch that he's going to have. That's going to pad those stats for Drake May. And then I know you needed to sell on the last two guys I was talking about, but in Superflex leagues, I think you could do a lot worse than Matthew Stafford. If you dig into the deeper numbers last year, when Puka Nacua was hurt to start the year, it was rough. Cooper Kupp was no good. Puka Nacua wasn't there. Second half of the year was much better for Matthew Stafford, and now he's got Devontae Adams along with him. And Devontae Adams over the last 5 years still in the top 5 guys in receiving yards. So he has shown very little wear and tear showing on him. That's a huge addition. So even if Puka goes down again, at least you now have Devontae Adams who can step up and be a 1. I think that's the big difference year over year with Stafford. And Penix is another one of these guys too. There might be some learning curve, got a big arm, surrounded by a ton of talent. Bijan Robinson's going to pad his stats, on top of which he's got a true number one in Drake London. He's got a very talented number two in Darnell Mooney, who's very solid. You've got Kyle Pitts. Maybe you can finally unlock or maybe re-unlock Kyle Pitts. But basically, I think the other thing people forget about Penix is this is another guy who is athletic, can get out of the pocket. That's not something you saw with Kirk Cousins. You're going to see that this season. So it might not always be pretty, but it's fantasy points, and that's what we're looking for. So Penix is another one of those guys. Don't dismiss him in your Superflex leagues at 24. That's a pretty good value, especially as your third quarterback for those bye weeks.
Joe, as we wrap it up, one of the stories going into camp has been all of these second-round picks unsigned. Is that changing anything in terms of average draft position as we head into August?
It will in the next couple of weeks if they don't sign, because that delay into camp is a problem, and this is what happens. We talked about it last time. Jaden Higgins, guaranteed money in the second round. See what's happening now? Everybody else wants more guaranteed money.
Thanks, Joe. Have a great weekend.
You're going to have the suck uniforms the entire season, but 3 games will give you with the best uniform. Those are the issues I have. The powder blues out for the Chargers. That should be every game. The Miami Dolphins old uniforms that they throw it back to. That should be your uniform, not the trash you wear now. The Patriots. You ever see them throw back with a little football player in the helmet? It is beautiful. But let's keep the trash uniform.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
So they're working together to kind of figure out what's happening here. Like you mentioned, we saw these videos of these 2 pitches that he threw, but there's a reason that those were flagged. It's this betting integrity monitoring service called IC360 flagged specific bets on those 2 games from Ohio, New Jersey, and New York, which were placed on these things called micro betting markets.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Seiya Suzuki and Pete Crow Armstrong, this is the first time the Cubs have ever had 2 players reach 25 home runs before the team's 95th game. I thought that was a stunningly odd statistic that you would have just thought, well, the Cubs, storied franchise, all these big superstars that they've had, and even superstar tandems, they've never been this good, and they continue to be that, man. They are just continuing to hammer the baseball. Pete Crow Armstrong, what an incredible trade that's worked out to be for the Chicago Cubs.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
There are better opportunities out there for LeBron than the Lakers if this is how the Lakers are going to operate.
They really put Milwaukee as bad. I had to put my glasses on. Milwaukee. Giannis may not be there. I'll tell you right now. New York.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Get ready for a big weekend in Major League Soccer. We've got Kyle Bonn in the house for a preview of that. Kyle, thanks for coming on NewsWire. And certainly I know we're coming down to, of course, some very big matches coming up. Thanks for coming on the show.
Back to the regular swing of things with league play.
So let's dive into the Philadelphia Union leading the Eastern Conference. They have 43 points, and I know that's one of the better teams in MLS this season. You know, certainly don't want to rule out Inter Miami ever here in South Florida with 38 as well. What do you make of the stretch run here?
It's a very crowded table right now, Craig. Really, really interesting look at the standings. You know, you mentioned the Philadelphia Union, bit of a surprise. They got rid of a really key player for them in midfield and Jack McGlynn, who just kind of didn't fit with their system. And they've been offloading a lot of their main players last offseason, and yet it's worked. Their front office took a lot of flack, and things are clicking right now. We'll see how much staying power it has, because there's a lot of teams right below them, both in the aggregate standings when you include the Western Conference and just in the East. You mentioned Inter Miami. They may be getting a big addition here this summer in Rodrigo De Paul. He's playing for Atletico Madrid, still a very good midfielder. He's kind of a home run passer, if you will, and he's well known as an enforcer. He and Messi have a really close relationship. They're both on the Argentina national team, and De Paul is known as kind of like his nickname, his literal nickname with the Argentina national team is Messi's bodyguard. So he's known as sort of Messi's enforcer, and bringing him in is not only a play to improve this season in a position they really need desperately, but also to try and convince Messi to sign a contract extension moving forward, bringing in another one of his buddies. So we'll see how that impacts the standings. Also, you've got San Diego FC, who are leading the Western Conference, an expansion team this year, in first place. We've seen that before with Atlanta United when they joined the league a number of years ago. Expansion teams have a history of doing well right off the bat, and they have been playing really great. So it's been a tight top of the table. The playoff race will be fun. A couple of big games coming up, this weekend. New York Red Bulls will play Inter Miami. The Red Bulls have fallen off the table a bit, but Inter Miami have not lost in 5 straight. So that's a big game. And then the game they call El Tráfico, which is the Los Angeles Derby, always a big game. The Galaxy have had a terrible season. It's been awful. They were so good last year, and everything has fallen apart since Ricky Puig tore his ACL late in the playoffs last year. It's just been a really tough bounce back for them. But this is a huge game, and LAFC are fighting for a playoff spot. So still a big one to draw fans to.
Let's go back to that game between, of course, Inter Miami and the Red Bulls. And, certainly the other day, Kyle, I was driving by the new stadium that they're building in South Florida at Freedom Park. I think that's going to give them quite the boost, because right now it's, being played in Broward County, as you know, in Fort Lauderdale. But, this is the way that Inter Miami was built, Kyle. It's really not about the regular season for them. It's trying to take the cup in the end. But let's review this weekend's game. Who do you think wins that one?
Yeah, again, Inter Miami are in such good form. How about this? Lionel Messi has scored 11 goals in their last 6 games, including the last 5. He's scored 2 in each game. So 5 consecutive braces for Lionel Messi. He's in scorching hot form, and they need him to continue that because, as I mentioned before, midfield is a real weakness for them, and defense has been a question mark as well. So he's sort of carried this team as he has his whole career there. And if he can keep this going, I think Inter Miami can win that game and keep the good form moving forward, because they need to continue to move up the table. They had a really slow start to the season. But now that the Club World Cup is over and they're sort of back in the swing of things, if Messi can continue carrying them, I see them winning that game and moving up the table, especially if they can get DePaul in. Reports are that one's close to being done, and that would be a big addition because he's a really good player still. He's not quite of that profile of old player getting one last contract in MLS. He still has a few years of his peak, the end of his peak left to go.
So now, Kyle, the key for this popularity of soccer always turns when we get to the Premier League, because that's what I think people around the world are focused most on. We still have some time until that begins, but transaction season is always very big. And I know there was a major one ahead of the Premier League season. What happened?
Yeah, so Liverpool brought Florian Wirtz in for over 100 million euros. It's one of the biggest transfers in Premier League history, and it is well deserved. Wirtz has been unbelievable for the last few seasons at Bayer Leverkusen. It's one of the big reasons that Xabi Alonso was able to have so much success there and go on to become Real Madrid's coach. He's an incredible player. He's a very versatile player, and he'll fit right in. Liverpool have always kind of moved on without a striker. They don't really have a natural striker on the books. Darwin Nunez has not really fit in very well at the club, so they've been looking for one. Unfortunately, Diogo Jota passed away this summer in a car accident. It was a very sad thing that happened a few weeks ago, and so he was really the only natural striker on that roster, and really not a long-term solution there. So they've moved forward to try and get Alexander Isak from Newcastle. Newcastle told them no. They've moved on to look at Hugo Ekitike, who played for Eintracht Frankfurt the last 2 seasons. Really interesting player. He's been excellent for Eintracht Frankfurt, especially last season. But he's had a rocky spell before that at PSG. They may be paying up to 80 million euros for Ekitike, which would signal a huge vote of confidence for the France Youth International. I don't know about it, but if they can make it work, boy, look out for Liverpool this coming season because they could be a juggernaut.
Huge signing for them. Now, the other league getting set to get started next month is the Champions League, and I know we still have some time for that as well. Kyle, what's the latest on their offseason?
Yeah, so we've got a little bit until the league phase draw. August 28th will be when they set the league phase. That's the new sort of table setup that they started last season. And it was a huge success. Everybody loved it. So they'll go back to that this season. There's still a couple of clubs in qualifying before that. You got Benfica, Fenerbahce, Nice all in the fourth round, Celtic, Bodo Glimt in the playoff round. So there's still some big clubs to play some Champions League qualifiers over the next month. But then when we get to the league phase, PSG, man, they're still so good. Even if they lost the Club World Cup final, they're the favorites, and I think that they'll be the favorites moving forward.
Thanks, Kyle. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Craig.
You're going to have the suck uniforms the entire season, but 3 games will give you with the best uniform. Those are the issues I have. The powder blues out for the Chargers. That should be every game. The Miami Dolphins old uniforms that they throw it back to. That should be your uniform, not the trash you wear now. The Patriots. You ever see them throw back with the little football player in the helmet? It is beautiful. But let's keep the trash uniform.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
So they're working together to kind of figure out what's happening here. Like you mentioned, we saw these videos of these 2 pitches that he threw, but there's a reason that those were flagged. It's this betting integrity monitoring service called IC360 flagged specific bets on those 2 games from Ohio, New Jersey, and New York, which were placed on these things called micro betting markets.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Seiya Suzuki and Pete Crow Armstrong is the first time the Cubs have ever had 2 players reach 25 home runs before the team's 95th game. I thought that was a stunningly odd statistic that you would have just thought, well, the Cubs, storied franchise, all these big superstars that they've had, and even superstar tandems, they've never been this good, and they continue to be that, man. They are just continuing to hammer the baseball. Pete Crow Armstrong, what an incredible trade that's worked out to be for the Chicago Cubs.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
There are better opportunities out there for LeBron than the Lakers if this is how the Lakers are going to operate.
They really put Milwaukee as bad. I had to put my glasses on. Milwaukee. Giannis may not be there. I'll tell you right now. New York.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid as we get ready to turn it over to Smiley for the latest on the Open Championship. Here on this show, at the end, we'll also give you the very latest leaderboard for the Open Championship with several players leading the pack about to head to the clubhouse. So let's do that. We'll also tell you the very latest on the golf course for one player who may not be able to return to a specific golf course. And could there be a return for Johnny Football? Time now for some last licks. Well, what happened with Wyndham Clark at Oakmont? Everybody was sort of talking about this at the U.S. Open. It was naturally a very hard golf course to play, and Wyndham Clark took out his struggles on the clubhouse itself. In fact, he's been suspended from Oakmont and can be reinstated contingent upon full repayment of damages to what he did out at Oakmont at the U.S. Open. Now, here's the bigger question here, folks. I get it. The U.S. Open's tough, and you may take it out on a golf club or two, or maybe even your locker. But how is it possible that we are basically a month removed from the U.S. Open and Wyndham Clark has not paid for damages that he made to the clubhouse there? How is this even possible? Seems far-fetched. That, to me, is really the story here, is that, hey, you make a mistake. We see this all the time in sports. Players break a bat. Maybe they take it out in a hotel room or two and hear that they caused X amount of damages and they have to pay. How has he not paid for this yet? It sort of seems to me that the U.S. Open made this public because they wanted him to pay it back, and he didn't. Wyndham, write the check, man. Millions and millions of dollars you're making playing on the PGA Tour. Take care of this thing. Don't worry about playing there again. Just pay whatever damages you made. Speaking of damages, that's basically all there was with Johnny Manziel when he was playing in the National Football League. Great player at Texas A&M, arguably one of the greatest college football players of all time, even so much so that Netflix did a documentary on him, Johnny Football. Manziel did a recent podcast and said that about a year ago, he considered returning to the NFL. How about that? Now, here are the bigger questions here. I don't know what happened in between his time playing at A&M to the Cleveland Browns, but this guy could not play in the NFL. Maybe it was self-inflicted. Maybe he just lost his talent from whatever happened from college to pro. So making a comeback for the United Football League or the Canadian Football League would seem to be legitimate. But Johnny, man, your time has come and gone. And by the way, it's been a while since we've seen him play any kind of professionally organized sport. So while I think he'll go down as one of the great college football players of all time, certainly I don't think that there's any future for him in the National Football League. But hey, CFL, UFL, AFL, BFL, DFL, whatever football league they start next spring, that's who you may want to try out for. Finally, the Open Championship is getting ready to wrap up day one, and there are some surprise names at the top of the leaderboard. In fact, I don't recall hearing any of these names at the top of the leaderboard going into this thing, but it is a major championship. So let's show you the updated leaderboard currently at the Open Championship overseas. As it stands right now, we have Jacob Slav Olsen. He's currently leading. He is 4 under par. That's followed by H.T. Lee, who's also 4 under par. Matt Fitzpatrick, 4 under par as well, followed by Scotty Scheffler, who is currently the favorite to win. And then several other players still involved. Aaron Ray, you see 3 under par there. Westwood, 2 under par. Sergio Garcia having a solid day at 2 under as well. And as I mentioned earlier in the program, in case you missed it, Phil Mickelson is also 1 stroke under par. And it looks like he'll finish that as we wrap up the first day of the British Open. But the good news is that those of you who are leaving our show today, in less than 2 minutes from now, you have Smiley Kaufman with the latest on golf as well. He's got you covered this afternoon from 12 to 1. We've got some fun shows for you here today because Scott Farrell is in the house at 3 o'clock Eastern. That's followed by Front Office Sports. We've got Game Time Decisions and In-Game Live Game Day. And then Gabe is back in the house, and he's on Sports Rage tonight. Make sure that you check all of our programming out throughout the day and tonight, and then I'll be back with you on tomorrow's show at 11 a.m. Eastern. Thanks to Vinny for filling in today, and thanks to Preston for producing the program, as well as our guests Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News, Kyle Bonn from Sporting News as well, and Joe Pisapia from Fantasy Sports Today. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Make sure you check us out live on NewsWire tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, exclusively here on SportsGrid. The rest of the Major League Baseball season gets underway tomorrow, and I'll have a full preview on Friday's edition of the show. Until then, have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, for our next edition of NewsWire. See you then.